Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the return of Third Thursdays from the JKC Gallery with our moderators, Heather, Palecek and Habiyb Shu'Aib. Thank you all for joining us. I know that you, you probably have your choice of Zoom meetings tonight, and we appreciate you choosing ours. So we have a great night tonight, and I'm going to just hand it right over. I will be monitoring the questions, and at the end of both artist presentations, we will start getting into some of those questions. So we are recording, and I will occasionally mute folks as they come in. Don't be offended. It's just to keep things a little organized. All right, so take it away, Heather, and welcome everyone.
Yeah, welcome. So I'm going to introduce what Third Thursdays itself actually is, and then pass it off to Habiyb, who will introduce our artists tonight. So Third Thursdays is a monthly event at JKC Gallery in Trenton, New Jersey. JKC Gallery is a photography gallery located within Mercer County Community College's campus, and it's directed by Michael Chovan-Dalton, who was just speaking. He is a professor at the college and our amazing host for tonight. So this event originally was an in-person event that Habiyb and I sort of invented, and we would hold it at the gallery itself with the intention of building the photography community in Trenton, New Jersey, and we were really excited to feature the work of local artists. Tonight, though, is our very first virtual meeting, so we're very excited for the opportunity to continue to feature local artists, but also some from out of state. We also are just so happy that all of you are here with us, joining us for our first virtual meeting. So thank you so much for joining. Habiyb and I have curated for you tonight 2 incredible artists that will be presenting their work. So you can expect to see 2 artist presentations this evening. The way it's going to work is that each artist will speak for approximately 20 minutes, and then we'll do a 5-minute Q&A at the end of each. Kevin will be going first. He'll speak for 20, and then we'll do Q&A for him. And then Chrystofer Davis will go after, and we'll do a Q&A for him. During their artist presentations, we would love for you to type into the chat box any questions that you have. And during the Q&A session, Michael will be the one to ask those questions of the artists. So feel free to ask a question at any time during the presentations. And then when all is said and done at the very end of the night, Habiyb and I want to continue with our tradition of seeing who in the audience would like to participate and be a future guest. So since we're not in person together, we're not going to do it on written paper, but instead I'm going, or maybe Michael will post a link to a Google form that you can fill out, and you will be being entered into the drawing to be one of our future presenters. So that's what you can expect from us this evening, and I'm going to give it over to Habiyb. You can introduce our artists for us.
Just a minor correction. We're going to do all the Q&A at the very end.
Oh, I'm
that's
so
right.
sorry.
That's fine. And I will post that link, so you have to wait till the end.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, everybody. How are we doing this evening? My name is Habiyb. I want to thank everyone again for joining us for this Third Thursday. You guys didn't on any Zoom, like Mike said, but you're here with us. So without further ado, I just want to introduce the artists that we have tonight, and I'm super excited about these artists. I had a sneak peek at one of the artists' exhibits, and I know another one personally, so I'm really excited about this. We have Kevin Hoth. Is that right? Oh. Yes. He is from Boulder, Colorado. He's actually an educator and an artist. You can consider him an experimental photographer. He's doing a lot of cool things, manipulating instant film, shout out to Fujifilm, that he's actually throwing out there. And he's actually going to walk us through his gallery, firsthand experience that he has he has an exhibit up right now that's called Immortal Chromatic. I hope I said that right. Yeah, so I'm excited about that, guys. Like I said, I had a sneak peek. We have a lot of store for you. And also we have Chrystofer Davis representing Newark, New Jersey, Jersey in the building. Okay. He's representing Newark, New Jersey. He's going to show us some of the things that he's been documenting since the pandemic that he's been in. And he's a photojournalist. So without further ado, Kevin, take it away.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. Thank you, Habiyb. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Michael, Chrystofer. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you tuning in, so to speak. So I am actually in the gallery where I have a solo exhibition up right now, and it's the culmination of a year-long residency. So I was granted a free studio where I live for a year, and so I'm gonna walk you guys through this exhibition. But I thought I would just start off with a few images just to kind of give you some context as to sort of where I started as a photographer. So I'm just going to share my screen and let me know if you can't see this for some reason. You see that all right? Okay, cool. So just a few images. So like a lot of photographers, I began wanting to do photography because my parents got National Geographic. I wanted to travel and take pictures, of course, like everybody else. And so I actually began like shooting analog, black and white, and also color photography. And this image is from a workshop that I did with Mary Ellen Mark in Oaxaca, Mexico, quite a long time ago. But you know, I started in this analog world, but I've always been like more of a, my desire is to always to be experimental in my work. And so this image is actually, it's a color, it's printed in color in a color darkroom, but it's actually two black and white sandwich negatives. So they're two different images. So, and then I basically got into photography on a road trip in my 20s after college. And then I ended up going to grad school and doing my MFA in photography, and I started doing digital work. So this image is actually like from 1997. And it's funny, like one of my students was like, that must be kind of weird that this digital image you made is like older than we are. And I was like, okay, let's move on. So I also like in grad school, I got really interested in doing digital video. And so I pretty much did my entire master's thesis was a video piece. And out of grad school, I started collaborating with musicians and modern dance companies and that sort of thing. I also did quite a bit of performance work in grad school. This is actually an image of me kind of pretending that all these birds are my friends. So it's actually a digital composite. And so my point of showing this is like, I've always been interested in experimentation. I've also integrated a lot of technology into my work. And, you know, I guess my bent for a while was like doing landscape photography and doing the road trip thing, making pictures. But I stepped back at a certain time and I was sort of thinking, you know, I want to contribute something new to the conversation in landscape photography. And I want to, you know, intervene in my own way. I want to do something unique. You know, road trip images can be, you can stumble upon something really great. You know, this was like one of my captures. But I wanted to move away from just like photographing what I found and actually intervening into the landscape. And so I began this project working with mirrors, and it's all analog. It's all done in camera. This is in Death Valley. And so I'm actually, I'm not going to give away my secrets, but it's all done in camera. It's just done with one mirror. And so what you're seeing inside of that sort of oval is what's behind me. And then the rest of the negative space is what's in front of me. And so I branched out into using square mirrors as well. But I've also been working with instant film for the last 4 years. And this kind of dovetails into my exhibition that is up right now. So about 4 years ago, my daughter had a near fatal brain hemorrhage, and she was in the hospital for a month recovering. And so to kind of maintain my sanity, I would go out in front of the hospital and I would stare at this flower bed. And it brought me some kind of hope and purity. And it was almost like, I mean, we've all been through challenging times. And I think sometimes when we're broken, we can actually see more fully. And that seems to have been what happened with me. Is it gave me a newfound appreciation. It kind of started off my obsession with flowers. And at the same time, I had bought this SX70 camera on eBay with expired film. And so what you're looking at here is actually a digital composite of 2 SX70 pictures with expired chemistry. I've moved on from those to like do more deconstructed film images with Polaroid. So I started putting the images of flowers through a paper shredder and then sort of rejoining them together into these new moments. So that's what these are. And then I started working with Fuji Instax Mini, which it's quite a bit cheaper, as many of you might know. And I started cutting into it, and I realized like, oh, there's some interesting things that happen with the chemistry when you cut into it. This is one of the first ones I made, just taking a picture of a yellow umbrella in Palm Springs, and then I cut into it with a scissors. And this also coincided with me being a digital photographer, really wanting to use my hands more. And so I started making these collages out of the instant film, and it just took me in this entirely new direction. And I was able to use my hands again. I was able to make physical photo objects. And so this has kind of exploded into this new work, which you'll see behind me. So I'm just going to stop sharing. And I forgot to set my timer, so please cut me off when my time is up. So I'm just going to walk you guys through this show. This is the interior of my show up right now, and what you're looking at these are Fuji Instax Mini mosaics. And so what I'm doing is I do a still life, almost like a flower arrangement. I photograph it, and then I translate it into the Fuji Instax Mini pieces, and then I cut them up and I also burn them. So this is, flowers, there's a lot of symbolism behind flowers. As soon as they're cut or picked, they begin to decay. In a similar way, as soon as you make a Polaroid image, it starts to actually break down over time. So that's one of the main themes of this show, is this idea of beauty and decay, creation and destruction. So when I actually cut and disrupt the image, I'm also creating something new. So I'm making a new mark. I'm making like new blooms into the photographs. So, and also when I use a magnifying glass to burn into them. So we actually need light to create images. And so I'm using something that we use to create images to also destroy them. And there's something honestly very satisfying about cutting into a physical picture. It feels somewhat subversive to me, which I really like. So I'm just kind of giving you some other views. And these are floating, and the reason I hung them this way is so that you can see the backs of them. So they operate pretty uniquely in terms of when they're backlit. You can see all the marks through the back. This image that's sort of bird-like in the back is cameraless. It was created entirely just with cuts and burns. And this piece is called Source, and it refers to the source of all life. And so, a lot of beauty and amazing things come out of painful experiences. When our mothers gave birth to us, it was an incredibly painful experience, but it brought us all to life. So that's kind of another one of the metaphors in the show. I have this is something I hadn't done for a long time until I had the studio, was doing like paintings and drawings. And these are, I guess you could call them riffs on Polaroid shapes. So they all actually refer to Polaroid shapes in their own way. They're pretty freeform, they're kind of loose. And I actually created them using photo retouching inks, which I found like in a free box at a garage sale. So I'm just going to move around. These are two, like when you first come into the show, you actually see these large prints here. And I scan the front and the back of one of the small individual pieces, and then I blow them up really large. So you can really see the cuts. You can see lint on them. You can see my fingerprints. And the other thing I should mention is that with a lot of these flower bouquets, I actually use flowers that maintain their color even after they've been dead for a while. So these are some of the actual flowers that are in those mosaics, and they've been cut and dead for, I think, 6 to 8 months. So that idea of almost like the immortality of color. And then I'm also, part of the theme here is like the physical body of the Polaroid versus almost like the digital soul. So I'm playing with that somewhat as well, in terms of like our images digital images can be quote unquote immortal, right? If we upload them to the cloud, we can make endless copies. So there's kind of a metaphor for the human body as well in this work. This is a mosaic. These are cameraless as well, and it's Fuji Instax wide. And I basically just take them out of the pack. I'll give away a secret. I take them out of the pack and I just squeeze the chemistry up into the internal space. And just with ambient light, they make these strange colors, blues, yellows, purples. And I have this fixed to plexiglass with resin. And I hung it off the wall so that you can actually go behind it. And I'll just walk you through a couple other spaces. This is a wall that has some larger prints. This is a digital collage of some of the Polaroids I made when I was going stir crazy at home. Like I have a bunch of cowboy hats and I was like making strange portraits of myself just because I was going a little bit wacky, like back in April, I think it was. So speaking of that, this is called 25-hour clock. And what I did was, I live in Colorado and we have random snowfalls, you know, in May and stuff like that. So it snowed on my skylight and I thought it sort of looked like a clock. And so I took an image of the skylight with the circle, and then I scored into it to make the hour hand of a clock. And I did that along these 25 pieces, and then I made an animation of it. So you can kind of, I don't know if you can see that here. So it's an animated GIF, 25-hour clock, referring to just, obviously during COVID, time has been such a weird thing. And so it refers to that, just how many hours in the day, how many days in a week. And then this is a wall of these smaller constructions. I made this one at the beginning of the pandemic, and it kind of reminds me of like this like viral evil snake or whatever that's like coursing through the pictures, and these are all taken from my front porch. So, you know, it kind of speaks the idea of being stuck at home. Yeah, so there's a bunch of these smaller pieces, and these I've been framing these this way with these, I guess, I don't know if you'd call them die cut, but you can see that. So the mats are actually cut around the edge of those collages. Let's see, what else could I show you? That's pretty much the rundown of the show. Let's see if I missed anything. So what time are we at? How much more time do I have?
You have about 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. So maybe I'll just go back to these images so you can see them a little bit better. I photographed them and scanned, like actually this one I scanned on like a tabloid scanner, because these pieces are very difficult to photograph. I've tried using polarized light with a polarizer on my lens, but they're really tough to photograph. And another thing about these pieces is I was sharing them on Instagram, but people really didn't understand kind of the scale of them. So I think it's really important as an artist to show your work at scale. And like, so I actually hung, this was sort of a test. I hung this and I photoshopped out some like wire or whatever and made it just sort of float in the gallery. But making sure, you know, photographing it backlit like this is just really helpful for people to get an idea. And then I always photograph my own installations. If they're not professionally photographed by someone, I always make sure I do that. I do like very specific lighting. So this is the wildflower piece that I showed earlier. And this one these are all wildflowers that I found near my home. So I live right up against the mountains and it's a beautiful place. And I picked all these wildflowers and I was walking home with them. And there was a bee that was trying to pollinate one of the wildflowers while I was walking home. And I just thought, how absurd is it that I like cut these flowers away from their life source so that I could take them and photograph them somewhere. So I'd already cut them. So I brought them in the studio. I lit them up and did like a still life of them. But then I actually went back and I photographed all of these exact flowers in situ, you know, while they're still alive. And I composited them digitally on top of the still life. And so that was the start image. And then I went back in and I cut into them and burned and did all my sort of mayhem into the image. And, this is like a real, the reason I love photography is because it's always an exploration to me. And so making these mosaics, hanging them up, seeing how they reflect light, seeing how the shadows they create, this is why I love doing this, because I just like seeing what's going to happen, when I do these different techniques or procedures or whatever you want to call them. Actually, this piece, it's named after one of those flowers that keeps its color. But what I did was I went into the digital image and I opened it up in a text editor. And you can basically glitch images by adding code into the quote unquote code of the image, right? And so what I did was I put in some of the statements from the president about basically misinformation around the coronavirus. I put that into the underlying document. And then I also put in statistics in terms of who is more likely to get coronavirus, right? So it obviously affects certain populations much more than others. Out of 10,000 people, I think it's maybe 23 white folks will get coronavirus, 73 Latinx people will get it, 65 people of color will get it. So we know that in even like systemic racism is a real thing. It's obviously in our police systems, it's also in healthcare. And that was actually one thing I ran into when my daughter was in the hospital, was I noticed how many more like non-white people there were in the hospital. And I was like, it really blew my mind. So I put in some of that stuff into the underlying code to sort of corrupt the image. And then I did my whole mosaic thing and I cut into it and I did all that jazz. This image is called Get Your House in Order. And so this is actually a perpetually created piece, meaning it'll never be finished. So it's about working on ourselves. It's about doing our inner work, our outer work as human beings, which is never finished until we're gone, right? And so this piece is conceptually, that's what it is. It'll never be finished. I'll never be finished. And I started actually, when I was at home, I started using thread in these pieces. So this is the back of that piece. And this is the source image I showed earlier, just some other installation images that, yeah. So that piece, I'll stop sharing for a minute and I'll just show you that piece in person. So I'll probably end with this piece. I think we're probably at 20 or so. So this was another discovery was when I was at home, I photographed some shadows in my home from like my favorite plant. And I made an image with my phone and I just had some thread nearby. And so I started wrapping the image in thread. And what I really liked about the thread was that it connects the front of the image to the back of the image. And it's one thing I've also mentioned is this idea that these Polaroid physical pieces almost have a past, and like the back is kind of the past and the front is almost projecting towards the future. Because every time we look at an image, we're actually recreating it anew in our mind, right? So, some people will call images memento mori, like they're from the past, but actually when each one of you sees an image, you're recreating it anew in your head. It has a new context, it has a new frame of reference, and you bring everything that you've lived through to that experience of that photograph.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. That was incredible. We do
Yeah,
have.
you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks
I
for
know
the
we're
opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. We're gonna break our rule really quick. We just have one quick question from the chat box about the 25-hour clock GIF that you had. Marcy Roberts asked if it was on a tablet that was hung on the wall.
Yeah, it's on an iPad.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to pass it over to Chrystofer Davis. And then once Chrystofer Davis is done with his presentation, then we'll take more questions from the audience and do our Q&A at the very end. But thank you so much. That was awesome.
Kev, that was amazing. Dolo, whenever you're ready, go.
I'm ready right now. Thank you so much, everybody. And, thank you so much for, Kevin, for showing your work. I'm really inspired, and, it definitely makes me want to get into, experimental photography, especially with Polaroids. I'm just going to just quickly share my screen, and then we'll go into to the presentation. So bear with me one moment as I share my screen. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and present. Hey everybody, my name is Chrystofer Davis. I am a street photographer, documentarian, and a fine art photographer based in Newark, New Jersey. I also am a filmmaker and a teaching artist as well. And basically, I'm going to be showing a bit of the work that I've been making and creating during the pandemic. But before I do so, I just want to give just like a little intro about myself and how I got into photography. It pretty much started out with me being in my senior year in high school, and having a free period in my social studies class. My teacher, he was a music video producer, photographer as well. He actually brought me over to his desk and he said, I want you to take this camera. He gave me a Canon 5D and go around and photograph some of the students and the staff that's here in the school, because he was creating the yearbook. And just throughout that time, just photographing and documenting the school, that really pushed me to say, hey, you know what, I want to take photography seriously, and I want it to be my career. So fast forward into college, I went to Bloomfield College. I was trying to take the photography program that was there, but by the time I was getting into it, it ended. So I ended up doing a digital video. And throughout that time in college, I networked, photographed some of the students. I was hired by the college to photograph some events. And then after graduating, I definitely had the opportunity to break into the industry and photograph some notable figures. I actually photographed Michelle Obama when she came to visit to Newark. Did a campaign with Puma and Urban Outfitters as well, and many, amongst other names. But throughout that time, going off into the industry and actually, doing these commercial works, I just started to see myself, just keeping my camera just, sitting on a shelf, and I really wasn't engaging with what I was doing. And so, I turned to street photography, and, I was just learning, about how to, properly document people, asking them, for their portraits on the street, and really, trying to, grasp the story of Newark. And that's kind of just leading on to some of my works that are, here today. So it's not that I was, I didn't like my work, what I was doing commercially, but I wanted to do something that was very important to me. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and move on in the presentation. Okay. So this is a project that I've been that I'm working on currently, and that is still ongoing. It's called Social Distancing in Newark, and I just really want to just document this pandemic and how Newark is taking it, because initially when it started, there was a lot of coverage of New York, because we're right across the Hudson, and we get little to no coverage of what's actually happening in our city. So I felt as though that my city, Newark, New Jersey, needed its time and place to be documented, to be amplified, and to be heard. And whenever I'm photographing now, I think of what it's going to mean in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I'm definitely proud to say that this particular project that I'm working on, that it's being preserved, that some of the images that was in this project was included in the New York Times, as well as being archived by the New York Public Library, Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. And with this particular image here, this was towards the beginning of March, when the pandemic was starting. Of course, you have these two gentlemen here, they're running in place, in this park, but clearly on the right, it says, this facility is closed, until further notice due to COVID-19. And during, the beginning of COVID, not a lot of people were taking it seriously, or they just didn't know what exactly was going to be happening. And definitely with this gentleman on the left, this, like I said, this is towards the beginning, and I was very cautious about going outside and interacting with people because of the news and what they're saying. But like I said, I just felt as though that seeing that people who lived in Newark didn't know what exactly was happening outside. I felt as though that I need to go out there and document, and to let the stories be heard from the people who are living during these times, because a lot of people, they want to stay indoors, they didn't want to communicate with anybody, and I'm just happy that, I can just be, a trustful voice, in my city. And towards the right, this is a closed gallery. I just wanted to just showcase, some of the unity and some of the positivity that's happening, during this pandemic. Because with the media, they'll tell you that there may be, some kind of, chaos going outside, pretty much just inducing fear into the people who are living, through this. But I just want to, to show everybody that, hey, it's not, too much chaos outside. We want to work together, and that, we can get through this together, as it clearly says, in the sign. Okay. And like I said, pretty much during that time, like I said, I just wanted to just showcase the faces and, the architecture that was happening, during the pandemic. Have a woman to the right. I asked for a photograph to see, to document this time, because I told her, this is important, for, the future generations to look down at. And she pretty much just posed this way, just covering, her hand, just putting her hand up, saying like, get back. But she was very eager to get her photograph taken. And I felt as though that a lot of people were eager to get their photograph taken, just because, I explained to them that, hey, we're all experiencing this together. And I just want to just, like I said, just preserve this and just to tell the people what exactly is going on. And towards the right, I've always known Newark to be a very lively place, filled with people, street vendors, food carts. And this was around, I want to say, like 12 or 1 o'clock, in the afternoon, and it's pretty much empty. And like I said, these are just some of the things that I just wanted to showcase. Okay, as well as like I said, the people who are living amongst this. Towards the left, I have a friend of mine and his girlfriend. They were outside gardening, and they had their masks on, but I was like, hey, like, let me just get a shot of you guys, just enjoying your times and just living in laughter and just being with each other. And then towards the right, in Military Park, I see a gentleman, while downtown is clear of people and there's no one in sight, I see him outside playing his guitar, and I just thought, like, wow, like, that's a sight. You wouldn't think that somebody will come outside and just start playing the guitar and just living their lives, as they can. And during the lockdowns, now I wanted to really speak to some of the business owners and see how exactly they're trying, they're handling the business and trying to sustain themselves, during the pandemic. Towards the left, I have a cook. His name is George. When this diner closed down, Central Diner on Central Avenue in Newark, he explained to me that he was kind of saddened that the shop had to be closed because he loves cooking. I feel like he makes the best cheesesteaks in Newark. But I just really just wanted to get his story and just to showcase him and honor him as he's trying to continue to do what he loves to do, just serving and cooking food. And then towards the right, I have my friend Adam Burgo. He runs a coffee shop in Newark called Black Swan Espresso. And I actually had the chance to like really just showcase him and how he's trying to keep the community caffeinated, during this pandemic. While they're trying to figure out ways to open up and open an online store. And I was happy to get his story out there in the New York Times, because while the businesses were starting to open, that article went out, and then the business started to come in after everybody saw the article. So I was just happy that I could just amplify his voice and his business voice, and to get more people to help him out and support him. And even after all everything with the lockdown and the restrictions, now New Jersey, we're in this place now where businesses they can fill up to about 25% capacity. And so I just went back in this project just to pretty much just follow up with them and how they're handling their business during this time. And they're as the weather starts to get cooler, they're still trying to figure out ways how to bring in more customers, to have them sit down. But I just wanted to show everybody like what exactly they're up to, and just to keep everybody informed. And even so, with talking to friends and businesses, like, this is a close friend of mine. Her name is Sally Helmy, and she's a nurse. She's battling the front lines of COVID, and she's also a local artist in Newark. And this is a part of a project that I'm working with as a media partner with the WBGO radio. And it's really just to pretty much get the voices of Newark outside. And, you know, I spoke with her and how she's, you know, on the front lines battling COVID, but at the same time, she's trying to use her method of, you know, drawing and art, you know, to, you know, help out the people who's in the hospital at the very moment, you know, to try to get them, you know, decompressed and to have them, relieved of stress. And, you know, these are some of the stories that I just want to tell them about, you know, what exactly is happening. As well as some of the innovations and what people are doing during COVID. This is also a part of that series with WBGO. This is a friend of mine, his name is Chrystofer, and he's actually, you know, an inventor and an engineer. And, you know, during this time, you know, when everybody was locked indoors, he thought to himself like, hey, you know, I want to make a mask, you know, that, because, you know, we're getting to learn that, you know, it's hard to breathe in this mask, you know, 24 hours a day. So he wants to invent something that, you know, a mask that has a self-propelled fan, you know, that can bring in fresh air, but still, you know, keep you safe with a filter inside. And like I'm saying, like these are the things that people are doing inside their homes, and that's not being heard. And that's something I want to amplify, you know, about what he's doing. And even so, you know, afterwards, you know, as the restrictions start to lift and everybody were outside, you know, I really want to just, you know, speak to the people and really try to get their voices heard, especially with the man on the left. He's a vendor and a merchant downtown Newark. He sells socks, hats, shirts, you name it. And, you know, he was just speaking about, you know, about his time, you know, being a merchant downtown Newark. He's been a merchant for a few years now, since, you know, 1995. And, you know, now he's wearing the mask. I think his dad actually passed away from COVID, and he wanted to honor his father by having a mask with him and his dad printed on it. And clearly you can say it's me, my dad, and I. And then towards the right, they were, you know, the father and child who were there before, but who were there when I took this. You know, I want to just honor them as well. You know, just to show, you know, showcase fatherhood in Newark and some of the positive moments that are here. Okay, and then next, this is, you know, the Black Lives Matter series that I'm working on, the People's Uprising, and definitely, you know, because, you know, a lot of these images here, they may be triggering to some, so I do apologize, but I just feel as though it's right to showcase the truth and nothing but the truth, and to really, you know, get the voices heard of some of the people who have been, you know, affected, you know, by police brutality, you know, and things of that nature. Okay. And this is a part, so with this particular image here, this is during the first one I went to out in Brooklyn during the Barclays Center. And definitely it was a crazy experience, but it was a very uplifting experience to see people, you know, together and in unity. And during that time, I really want to, you know, document, you know, all of the faces and the movements that were happening around in New Jersey. Because I stated before, since we're right across the river from New York, you know, New York is getting a lot of, you know, traction as far as media and coverage, you know, as well as LA and some of the other major cities. But I felt as though that these smaller towns needed their voices heard, and I wanted to just, you know, showcase that. And the one on the left is from Hackensack, and the one on the right is in North Bergen. And pretty much I want to showcase, you know, these particular images that women were on the front lines, you know, doing the work and really, you know, just holding down the line. And that's something that, you know, that in the media, it wasn't showcased. And that's something I want to just, you know, honor the women who are out there, you know, doing the hard work. And I'm just going to just go, you know, through these a bit, because I know that we have, you know, some time ahead of us. As well as these are some, you know, some of the cooler images that I saw. I wanted to make a silhouette of this man, you know, on the left, you know, with an American flag. But, you know, it kind of makes you question that, hey, you see all of these different logos and, you know, these familiar logos that you're, you know, that you may have, you know, purchased, or they just look familiar. And it really shows you, like, is America really ran by, you know, the people, or is it being ran by the companies? As well as the man towards the right, you know, he has this afro, you know, which in the 60s and 70s was a showcase of power and being proud of, you know, who you are, you know, as an African American or a Black man. And, you know, he has the American flag, but as the peace symbol. And like I say, these are just some showcases of unity, because with a lot of, you know, the news coverage, it was saying that, you know, there were riots, that there was a bunch of chaos that was happening by some of the demonstrators and protesters. But these are some of the things that were actually shown, during these times, unity, and just the showcase of, the older and the younger generation coming together. And just some other showcasings that I want to put out there as well. And the biggest thing for me, I am a parent. I have a 10-year-old, and just seeing these reflections of these parents and how they're bringing their younger children here, is very honorable, because they want them to live in this particular moment, even though they may not have a memory of it when they grow older. Their parents can actually tell them, and show them these photos that, hey, you were out there during our modern day civil rights movement, when we were walking against injustice, and we were seeing that we want peace in the streets. Actually, I just wanted to just showcase some of the other things that were happening during there, and just showing that the younger generation really want to take lead on these particular issues. And these are definitely some of the more recent ones during the judgment for the 3 police officers and Breonna Taylor. And definitely, actually, with these 2 images, I feel like they marry well together, especially with the younger generation looking at the current generation now, and just this innocence of like seeing like what exactly is happening, like what are they marching for, and then towards right, see the Black Lives Matter symbol as well and sign. But even so, with some of the more positive things that have happened during these protests, there were a lot of times where a demonstration could have went sour, and it was definitely for me, it was a bit traumatic during this experience, because as a Black man I'm African American, and I'm of Caribbean descent. Just documenting these moments and really preserving them. I just know that these type of things, it affects me, towards the daily, and and just being in this particular moment, marching with the people, and somehow there was some kind of conflict, and now the police are actually arresting some of the demonstrators, and it's a very traumatic experience. But even though I really want to show the positive, I feel as though it's more important to show like the other side of what happens during the demonstration. And it goes along with these 2 other images as well. And this is I just want to show this is one of my favorite images, and I feel like it's definitely a classic image to me, about just the people's uprising, in New York, and just fully taking on the Brooklyn Bridge, just to have their voices heard and amplified. Okay. And so now I want to introduce a new project that I'm currently working on, which is also going to be a book. It's called Beaching in the New Normal. And it's pretty much just to showcase the documentation of Coney Island during the pandemic. And through this time, I was discovering how exactly were people going about their summer and spending it, because, there's a lot of, people saying that, hey, we should just stay inside and just, let's try to socially distance and, not try to congregate. And I was scared to go to the beach as well, because I know that they're talking about that the numbers are decreasing, but the cases are increasing as well. So I really didn't want to take my son or my family out there. And we'll just go further along with this project. Just a small preview for what's to come. And during that time, on Coney Island, so as a New Yorker, I'm always used to going down to the Jersey Shore, to Asbury Park or to Seaside Heights. And I've only been to Coney Island once with an ex-girlfriend. We went for some kind of event, but I almost want to just rediscover Coney Island a bit and to see what exactly is going on. So of course you have people that, they're wearing their masks and socially distancing. But at the same time, you're going to start to see that people were congregating with each other and really, going against the rules. And I've always known heard about Coney Park and Coney Island Park, and having the rides open and people just playing games and going on roller coasters. And as I'm arriving there, I'm starting to see that everything is shut down. you can't really enter the park. You know, if you can only be there, you know, if you're going to the beach or if you're going to the concession stand to get something to eat or something to drink. Okay, I went further along. And, you know, of course, on the beach, you know, I'm starting to see, you know, the signs that say they'll keep this, you know, this far apart. And in certain cases, you know, I've seen that people were still socially distancing. And I thought it was interesting towards the image that was on the right, you know, how, you know, we have these people that are in the water, but then the lifeguard, you know, he's swimming over and telling everybody, like, hey, make sure you're keeping, you know, further away from each other, you know. So I wanted to just marry these two images together just to show, you know, how they're equally, you know, 6 feet apart all around. It kind of makes like a perfect square a bit, you know, and I thought that was just very interesting. As well as, you know, while I'm walking around, I'm seeing a lot of these different concession stands closed. You know, you can't go over and, you know, play games. I think this, like I said, this was a lot earlier. I want to say perhaps maybe July. And, you know, a lot of these stands were closed, but, you know, people are still trying to enjoy themselves. And then I see a woman on the right, you know, I think her and her boyfriend won a prize somewhere, but I really wasn't seeing a lot of the gaming stands opened. And as soon as I saw, I thought that was like some kind of puppy that she had in her hand, but then I saw it was like, you know, King Kong, and I was just like, wow, like I have to go up and ask her for a picture. I mean, further along, you know, I'm still experiencing, you know, Coney Island and seeing what it's like, and you know, the kids are outside playing. You know, kid, he was in the water with a SpongeBob toy, and you know, it's just floating away, and he could just quickly grab it if he saw me photographing it. And then towards the right, you know, this guy and his friend, I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to tell his friend or whatever kind of interpretation that he was doing, but you can still see that people were still, you know, playing and having fun, you know, even during the pandemic. And then also, I see that there was, you know, there's a lot of pride that was, you know, showcased on the boardwalk. You know, I know it's a hotspot for, you know, Puerto Ricans, and, you know, they play live music. You know, they congregate, and I'm starting to see that, you know, people are around this area. People are, you know, they have the mask as chin straps, but, you know, a lot of people are not following the rules. You know, they're just outside drinking, just still trying to have fun as if, you know, life was still normal. Okay. Let's see. Just a few more images. I know that I'm maybe a little bit over time, but I just wanted to showcase these images. Even towards the right, the man, he was in his clown outfit, and he was still making, you know, these balloon figures, you know, and still trying to give it to the children. I thought that was interesting. Even with documenting some of the workers that were out there, even the man on the left, he was trying to enforce, you know, people to put their mask on, but at the same time, you know, he has his mask covering down, which I thought was a bit interesting. And further along, this is the last image. This is where, you know, things got, you know, a little bit crazy. Towards the right, of course, you see that the teens, they actually threw a party, you know, I think for after graduating, and you know, they were out there, no mask, you know, it's just a big group of them, and, you know, they were just, you know, congregating and having fun. And then towards the left, as I was walking down the beachfront, you know, somebody was yelling at if there's like a shark in the water or something like that, and I'm just like, wait, what do you mean like there's a shark? But they were just like kept pointing out. I think that the woman who's being, you know, brought out, you know, onto land, that she may have been a bit intoxicated and gotten in the water, and then may have, you know, had a few slips of seawater. But as soon as she would start walking out and talking to the I guess like the park leaders on the left, like she was talking to her, but then she like fell down in a sense, you know. But definitely, actually, this is just to showcase that, you know, even during the pandemic, people are still trying to live their lives freely and openly, but, you know, we have to, you know, continue to keep ourselves safe. And that's the end. Thank you. I'll stop sharing the screen.
Thank you, Chrys. That was amazing.
Dolo, that was awesome, man. The justification and the storytelling that your photography shows is amazing, brother. Thank you. Kevin, man, you inspired me to do so much more with the medium of photography than just meets the eyes. That's amazing. I can't even begin to explain it. I want to ask a couple questions myself, but let's get into the questions that we actually have that's in our chat right now.
So you and Heather will definitely have time to ask questions, but there's only a few, mostly two compliments. One from David's phone, really good content, Dolo. Love what you're doing for your city. And from Matt Evans, that shot on the right with the peace flag is so good and amazing images. Thanks for sharing. And then the question came from Alessandro Rivero, gallery assistant Alessandro Rivero. Where can we find this New York Times article with your work for Chrys?
Right. So what I'll do is, so I'm actually going on my website right now. I will share the link in the chat room, so that way you guys can check it out. But it's the title of the article is Newark Artists Thriving Amid Crisis and Catharsis, and I'm actually going to share that with you guys right
Great,
very
thanks.
moment. So you can definitely take some time to check it out, and yeah, you can see what the people are doing. All right.
I just asked my own question, actually. You mentioned that you were going to put your Coney Island images in a zine. Do you know when you'll have that for sale and where we could purchase?
Well, hopefully at the end of this year. I'm still, I'm still putting together the zine and really seeing how to marry certain images and what works and what doesn't. So, and I'm still, like I said, tinkering and tweaking it. So, but I definitely will announce it on my Instagram, and it'll be available to the public very, very soon.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, Kevin, I have a question for you. How much longer is that exhibition that you have going on right now? How much longer is that going to be up?
It's actually only up for another week. So each of our shows is only up for 2 weeks. So it's a little bit short. Yeah, normally like my exhibits are up for like a month or more, but this one's kind of a brief one. So yeah, another week.
Dolo, let me ask you a quick question because I was looking at the photos that you were showing. Number-wise, this is say percentage. How much are you shooting analog and how much are you shooting digital? 50-50, 20-80? Like, can you throw a number out there for the people that's watching?
I would say majority of the time it's maybe like 80-20 for like film and then digital. So normally, whenever I'm going out shooting, I'll take either like my Leica M6 with me, and then I have a point and shoot for digital, which is a Ricoh GR3. And sometimes, I feel as though that with both mediums that they hold their place. I do a lot of the film for like archiving work to live, further on. And then, the digital just for like the instant gratification, or if I'm taking a photograph of somebody that, I can instantly just send it to them. And so that way that they can actually see like what exactly is going on. But a lot of times, like I said, I'm shooting film. Like I said, I'm thinking about, what's going to be happening next 20, 30 years. And, how can I, preserve that, and to live, further along in life, even way past me. And I'm doing a lot of printing with the film as well. So that's going to aid in some of the archival things.
We have a question from the audience from Marcy Roberts for Chrystofer. Do you take photos every day, and you always ask for permission before you take someone's photo?
All right. So with me photographing, I try to photograph every day. I treat it every day as if it's my first time photographing. And I consistently go downtown Newark. I try to photograph the same things that I normally see, and try to do it differently in each way. And whenever I'm taking photos of people, sometimes it'll be candid, because I really just want to show the citizens of Newark and how they're living everyday life. But in any case, if there is a time where I want to take a formal photography, of course I'll ask for permission, and I'll tell them exactly why I'm doing it. Because in some cases, a lot of people, when I approach them, they don't like having their photograph taken, or they're like, hey, like what are you doing? And I just tell them that, it's just to preserve history and just to tell a different narrative of Newark, because I may not like how other people who are not from here, and even the media, talking about, what Newark is and how it really is without really being here.
Nice. From Tamara Torres. Hi, Tamara. For Chrystofer, when you photograph strangers, do you typically ask for their email, to send them an image or a social media link?
Well, I normally ask the person, if they have Instagram or any other social media, because I'll be able to just instantly, DM it to them. But in most cases, I'll get an email or two, and then I'll be able to send it over to them. But it's mostly asked for like the social media because it's a lot quicker.
Right. So, okay. I have so many questions I want to ask both of you guys, but I don't want to hold it up any too much longer. But I do want to ask a general question for both of you guys. Do you have any future projects coming out besides the thing that you showed us with the speeches to the new normal? And do you have anything in the future, Kev? And if any advice you have for anybody that's trying to come into photography, anything like that, then I'm going to send it over to Heather after that.
Christopher, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, so besides the Beaching in the New Normal project that I'm working on, I'm working on a project called Walk With Me. I've been working on it now for about 3 years, and it's really just me, rediscovering Newark, through photography, and really just telling a narrative of my own, and how much I love Newark, and what I'm discovering as I'm walking through Newark. Because like I said, with the media talking so negatively about Newark, it really just pushes away people, in themselves, just trying to experience Newark for what it really is. And I just really just want to just combat that, and just really just show them that Newark is a very safe place. It's a very loving, very place, and those are the things that I want to showcase. And as far as anybody wanting to get into photography, I would just say, just figure out your why, and it's okay to experiment as well, and that you don't have to have the most expensive camera, to really tell a story, or to tell your own narrative, or to tell somebody else's story. That it could just be simple by you just using your phone, just to start out. But then if you want to further experience how to manually take a photograph, then I say jump into a digital camera, and then maybe experimenting with film, because film is very challenging, but you can definitely grow from it. And yeah.
I'm just gonna break it for 1 second here, and I know some people will have to go at 8, and we're gonna keep this going, Kevin, and I don't want to cut you off, but I did put the link in to be considered for a guest, so just wanted to let you know.
Cool. So yeah, to those two questions. So getting into photography, I think you just have to follow an aspect of it that you love, and just follow it into the abyss. I mean, I call these obsessions of mine, like I get obsessed with mirrors, or I get obsessed with Polaroid film, or I get obsessed with whatever it is, and you just follow it until the trail goes cold, and then you go somewhere else. You have to just find your own personal connection to it. Yeah, and as far as other stuff that I have coming up, so I do show with a gallery in Denver, Walker Fine Art, and I'm going to have some work coming up in that show in November. It's kind of related to this work. And then, some of the mirror pictures that I showed, I have like a pretty big body of work of those, and you can see more of them on my website, just kevinhoth.com. And I'd like to make a photo book of those images. I mean, making photo books it's not a money making thing. So I've been really questioning, like I've made sort of like print on demand books in the past, just for like family and friends, but they're so expensive to make. But yeah, that's one thing I'd like to do, is do a book of all my mirror pictures. Yeah. And I just want to say, Christopher, I love your work. You're like super adept at like black and white and color. Like I was like super getting into the black and white shots, and like super tight compositions. Like I love how quiet your framing is. Like there's the intimacy of them is so wonderful. And then you switch to color, and I was like, oh, rad. I mean, like I just love some of those Coney Island shots were just really, really great. So I like the fact that you're shooting film is like, that's super rad. So yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I people know me to photograph in black and white, at all times. But I just felt that it's you just have to use it to, your advantage as far as what you're trying to, what story you're trying to put out there, especially with some of the Black Lives Matter photos that, you want to see, like, to the colors of people. You want to see the colors of their signs. But even with Coney Island, it's a bright, sunny day. The beach, you're at the beach, should be saturated just a bit, So I just really, take those things into consideration.
Yeah. Rad. Awesome work.
Thank you.
We had a couple questions come in. Joel, I think you already, Christopher, I think you did answer this already, that when will your, oh no, this is different. When will your Newark water project be ready?
Right. So I had to, put this project, at a bit of a halt, just due to COVID, because last year there was a protest at the Newark, the MTV VMA Awards, and it was pretty much the citizens of Newark that came together to protest about the water situation, about having lead in the water. And like I said, there was this whole thing about the city putting out a statement saying that this particular area doesn't have the water issue, that you can still come in and still enjoy the amenities and entertainment. And people were very upset about that. But one thing I will say is that the Newark water crisis project is being put into a collection, like pretty much a book with my collective. It's called Land. That's going to be coming out very soon. So, like I said, I'll definitely put that out there on Instagram when you guys are, when it's ready and when it's fully out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and that was from John Flandenet. And then from Trina Guevara, do you prefer digital or film?
Film all the way. Yeah, I just feel like, for me, just coming from a digital background, with film, I like having something physical and tangible. It's something fulfilling about using your own vision and exposing in your way, in a correct manner. And even as far as going into the dark room, developing your own photos, and even going to an enlarger and making silver gelatin prints in the dark room. I just like the physicality of it, because sometimes, like, I can't sit behind a screen all the time to try and edit a photo. I mean, I could, but I'd rather be standing up and doing something physical.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna want to make a comment and question. I'll hand it back to our moderators, but I'm reserving my time. Just a comment on both your works that you showed tonight. What I found really interesting is how you're both responding to our time right now, what's going on in this time in very different ways. Christopher, in a very documentary style, in a very documentary way, showing what's going on in Newark, what's going on in the world, what's going on in Coney Island, and the way and what people look like now, right? And how people are behaving now, and the way we respond to a photograph because of the way we think people should be right now, right? So it's a very what's the word? It has to do with where we are in the moment right now, right? And then Kevin, you're doing it, responding in a much more conceptual way, embedding the code into the imagery, right? Creating that glitchy imagery, and using that work for where people look, but then also need some context, right, in order to understand. And that's another way of documenting, our times. And then a question for Kevin: did you consider, when you started working in the Instax film, what would happen if that stopped being made?
No, I didn't. I mean, I've been around long enough where, I saw Polaroid go bankrupt, then they got resurrected by the Impossible Project. And then Fujifilm came around to sort of pick up the torch. And honestly, like, I teach in actually a art and technology program, and I have so many students that shoot film that I just feel like, there's such a resurgence of like older technologies. I've done like wet plate workshops, and like, I just think people crave so much, like Christopher was saying, like, we don't all just want to sit behind a screen, all the time. We actually want to be, it's like cooking versus fast food, right? You just get so much more enjoyment out of the final image when you're going through that whole process. So I have no fear around that. In some ways, like, I have a daughter who's like really hardcore environmentalist, and part of me just, every time I open another pack, I'm kind of like, God, I'm like using these resources and I should just be making like chlorophyll pictures or something, or like, you know what I mean? How you can take like a negative and put it on a leaf. I was like, so in some ways I'm kind of like, God, this feels so wasteful, but I love doing it. So, I mean, I think I like having constraints too. So like if it did just go away, I'd kind of be like, oh, cool. What can I do next? You know,
Yeah.
like it wouldn't, I'd go into doing like cyanotypes, or I'd go into screen printing, or
Right.
you know, ceramics, who knows? Like,
Well, you know, speaking of the environment, and then I swear I'm done, Heather and Habib. I used to have this argument with people all the time who would say film is bad for the environment, and it does have its minuses for the environment in terms of production, silver, mining, chemicals, all that, but so does digital. There's a lot of mining involved in digital and a lot of waste involved in digital. I mean, think about how many times you upgrade your cameras and then your computers because your cameras have more megapixels, things like that. So, you know, I think it's a wash when it comes to environmental concerns. I don't let people have that argument with me. Yeah.
for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Those are great questions, though, Michael. So thank you for asking. Well, we do have just one last question in the chat box, and I know we're 6 minutes past our deadline. So thank you guys for sticking in a few extra minutes tonight. We really appreciate it. The last question is from Cliff, and it's to Chrys, asking if you like the act of shooting or the process of creating, and why. Oh, that's for both of you, actually. So do you prefer the act of shooting, or do you prefer the act of creation? I guess whether that's, Cliff, do you mean like in the dark room versus actually hand making the Fuji Instax collages? Yes, okay.
Well, for me, I enjoy the act of shooting. I just like being out there, you know, in the environment, you know, talking with people and even collaborating with them, you know, with, you know, doing a photograph. I just feel as though, like, you know, the camera is the connector, you know, to the person you're photographing, and you're really telling the story. And like I said, I feel as though that just the act of shooting, like I enjoy that a lot. Like I can't wait to, you know, put a roll of film, you know, through the M6 and really just go out there and photograph the environment. So I feel like I prefer that better.
Yeah, I would say that it's all making to me. Like if I'm just making whatever it is. I mean, like I don't have any projects right now that I'm working on where I'm actually going out into the world and making pictures. I mean, I'm still doing the mirror thing sort of in the background, but I take pictures with my phone all the time. I mean, I have thousands of pictures. I make pictures all the time. It's just part of my life. Like I see and I make pictures, and I love photography like more than anything, aside from of course my daughter. But and as far as like the Instax stuff it's just another form of making. And for me, it's still part of photography. And that's one thing I love about photography is it is endless. It is technically endless. There's so many different processes: film, digital, analog, alt process, screen grabs, video, whatever. It's endless. So that's why I love being a part of it.
Well, thank you so much. I guess, what do you think, Habib? Does that conclude our night?
I love it. For us to take a break during this pandemic, if you're first time followers or coming to this club, we literally only had one meeting in March, and after that it was finito. So for everybody that's here interacting with us, from the artists to people who are just viewing, you know, thank you so much. Like I said, both of you guys have inspired me in such a crazy way. I think I'm gonna grow out, take some photos right now, do something. You know, thank you, Mike. Thank you to Heather, and I don't know, guys. Like I said, we each dropped links into the chat if you're interested in being a guest next month, because we're going to do this every month, and hopefully this this is over soon and we can be meeting in person again. But we want to just see where this goes, guys. So if you're interested in showing, definitely drop a link. You know, you can find all the artists' Instagram handles at the JKC Instagram page. You can also find me and Heather's Instagram links there. And from there on, guys, you know, you go follow up. Everybody, thank you, man. I want everybody to be out there to stay. You know, do what you have to do, guys, and enjoy your night. Heather, you have anything else you want to say? Mike, artist, you have anything else you want to add to this?
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
thank
thanks for
you.
having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, take care, everybody.
Yeah, thank you to everyone, and thank you to everyone who came to listen. It was great.
All right, thank you, guys. Enjoy your night. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye.
Enjoy your holidays. The spooky season, October.
Bye, everyone.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.